Ever feel like life throws you these curveballs
Yeah.
and you just kind of freeze up like you don't know what to do?
Right?
Now imagine that, but for a kid, right?
Yeah.
Who's facing like their first schoolyard argument or something really disappointing for the first time.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And that's where this idea of emotional resilience comes in.
Yeah.
And that's what we're diving into today.
Absolutely.
We've got this awesome guide, by the way.
Yes.
All about how to help kids navigate those tough moments.
So needed.
Right. And come out even stronger.
Yes. This guide is fantastic, I think, because it really dives deep into the how.
Yeah.
Like, how do we actually foster that emotional resilience in our kids? And it gives really practical strategies.
That's what I love about these deep dives, right?
Yeah.
It's like we take the theory and we're like, all right, let's get down to like the everyday stuff.
Exactly.
But before we get into all of that good stuff,
Okay.
let's talk about what emotional resilience actually is.
Yes.
Because it's more than just bouncing back from something, right?
Right. This guy does such a good job of making it clear that emotional resilience isn't about like being stoic or just like hiding how you feel.
Pushing it down.
Yes. It's about giving kids the skills to process and deal with their feelings in a healthy way.
Yeah, like having the tools
Yes.
to deal.
Valid.
So it's like giving them an inner compass to
Yes.
figure out those ups and downs, right?
I love that. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that this guide really highlights how emotionally resilient kids are actually better at building relationships.
Oh, interesting.
Strong, healthy relationships,
Oh, okay.
which I know is something that you're really passionate about.
100%. Yeah, building those positive connections is so important.
Absolutely.
So tell me more about that. What's the link between resilience and relationships?
So the guide explains that when kids understand their own emotions, they're better at communicating their needs,
Okay.
which makes sense.
Totally.
They're less likely to have those big outbursts or just shut down completely
Right.
when things get tough. And that communication,
Yeah.
it's key for stronger bonds.
That's so true.
Right, right.
Because it's like, instead of having a meltdown about which cup they have, it can be a conversation.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just the communication piece, too. Resilient kids, they're better at perspective taking.
Okay.
They develop more empathy,
Got it.
which is so important for navigating those conflicts that are just a natural part of relationships.
Right. So they're learning to deal with their own emotions and other people's.
Yes.
Wow. So valuable.
When you say
Yeah.
it's such an important life skill.
Absolutely. Stronger friendships, more harmony at home.
Yes,
That's huge.
it makes a big difference.
But, besides those benefits, I'm really curious about the impact on their overall well-being. Because I know for me, like a happy kid equals a happy parent, a
Right.
happy house.
And the research really backs that up.
Okay.
This guy does a great job of, breaking down all the research and the science behind it.
Yeah.
And there's a strong connection between those emotional resilience skills and a more positive outlook on life in general.
So it's not just about, like, avoiding a meltdown. It's about raising kids who are optimistic.
Yes.
Who can roll with things a little bit better.
Yes, and that resilience, that ability to sort of flow through challenges
Yeah.
without being totally overwhelmed, it affects every single area of their life.
Oh.
It affects every single area of their life.
Wow.
It can impact how they do in school, how they go after their goals.
Okay, so it's not just weathering the storm. It's like thriving in the storm.
Yes, exactly.
That's amazing.
It's a game changer. Totally a game changer.
And the best part is this isn't something that some kids are just born with.
Right.
Like, it's a skill set that
Yes.
can be learned and practiced.
Exactly. And that's what I love about this guide. It doesn't just tell us why emotional resilience is important.
Yeah.
It gives us ways to actually do it.
Yes.
Like how to build it with our kids.
Okay, but I was going to say, as a parent,
Yeah.
knowing the why is important,
Yeah.
but it's the how that gets me.
Yes, it can feel overwhelming.
A little bit, yeah.
Yes. But this guide does a really good job of breaking it all down into manageable steps,
Okay.
which is nice, like a breath of fresh air.
Okay, so what stood out to you?
Let's see.
Like, what can we actually start doing?
So there are a few things, but this first one's super important.
Okay.
It might sound simple,
Okay.
but it's helping kids learn how to label their emotions.
So, like, actually putting words to the feeling.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
It sounds basic, but think about it.
Yeah.
Like even as adults, if we can't figure out what we're feeling, how do we deal with it?
Right.
It's the same for kids.
Yeah.
So if they can say, I'm frustrated or this is disappointing, instead of just like,
Melting down.
Yes, instead
Yeah.
of melting down, that's the first step to being able to manage those emotions.
Totally. It's like that saying, name it to tame it.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And this guide actually goes even further.
Okay.
It talks about co-regulation.
Co-regulation. Okay.
Have you heard of that?
I haven't.
It's basically this back and forth
That's-
between a parent and a child,
Yeah.
where the parent is helping the child learn to calm down and deal with their big feelings.
So interesting. Okay, tell me more.
So it's all about modeling.
Okay.
And not modeling in the sense of pretending we have it all figured out, but in letting our kids see how we feel.
Yeah.
Like the full range of emotions.
So instead of trying to hide when we're stressed or frustrated,
Exactly.
we should be more real with them.
Yes, in an age-appropriate way, of course.
Of course.
It's not about like dumping our problems on them,
Right.
but about showing them that it's okay to not be okay.
Right, like you're not a robot.
Yes. And even more importantly, letting them see how we deal with it.
Okay, so we're not aiming to be superheroes.
Right.
We're more like guides.
Ooh, I love that.
Right.
Guides, that's a perfect way to put it.
To help them.
Yeah, we're showing them it's okay to mess up, to have feelings, to ask for help.
Yeah.
And speaking of help, that brings us to another big thing from this guide.
Okay.
Problem solving versus rescuing.
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Right.
Because it's so tempting to just jump in and fix everything.
All the time. It's totally natural we want to protect them.
Yeah.
But this guide reminds us that struggling a little bit is actually really important
Yeah.
for building that resilience.
So instead of giving them the answer,
Right.
we should be like, what do you think you should do?
Exactly. And the guide actually has some really great phrases and stuff
Really?
to help in those situations.
That's helpful.
Yeah. Because it's not about leaving them to just figure it out completely alone. It's about supporting them while they try to find their own solutions.
Okay, so we're not just teaching them the answer to one problem, but
Yeah.
how to approach any problem.
Yes. And it all goes back to that growth mindset idea that we talked about.
Yeah,
It's about believing that we can learn and get better by trying.
totally. And I think that's so important for kids to hear.
Yeah.
That's huge. It's like we're giving them the tools to not just deal with things, but to actually grow from them.
Exactly.
Okay, speaking of tools, I'm curious about that last strategy that you mentioned, empathy.
Yes.
Because at first, I wouldn't have put those two things together,
Right.
empathy and resilience. But the more I think about it, the more I can see how they're connected.
It's powerful. Right.
It is. So tell me more about that.
Well, the guide talks about how important it is to teach kids to understand other people's feelings, which makes sense. We need that for healthy relationships.
Right.
But what's really cool is that empathy actually makes kids more resilient,
Yeah.
too.
Oh, wow. Okay, how does that work?
Well, think about it. Imagine a kid who's dealing with a disappointment, right? Maybe they didn't make the team or their best friend is mad at them.
Yeah.
If they can tap into empathy, if they can understand that everyone goes through stuff like that,
Right.
it makes their own experience feel less lonely, less intense.
So it's like, hey, other people feel this way too. I'm not alone.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
It helps them see that those tough emotions are normal.
Yeah.
And when you don't feel so alone, you're naturally going to be more resilient when things get hard.
Like a superpower. But the superpower is understanding.
I love that. And, you know, this guide brings up one last point that I think ties everything together so well.
Okay, what's that?
Creating a safe space for kids to really express how they're feeling.
Okay, that sounds great in theory.
All right.
But what does that actually look like day to day? Life gets so busy and parents aren't perfect.
You're so right. It's not about being perfect. It's about being there for them.
Okay.
It's about those small moments, but doing them consistently, where your kids really feel seen and heard.
So consistency over perfection.
Yes.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
So even if I'm having a crazy day, maybe it's making sure we still have those 15 minutes at bedtime
Yeah.
to connect.
Yes. Exactly. It's those little things you do over and over
Right.
that show your child, hey, no matter what, you're safe here. You can be yourself, even when things are tough.
It's like giving their heart a warm hug.
Yes. Beautifully said. You know, thinking about all of this,
Yeah.
the guide really focuses on the child's emotional resilience.
Makes sense.
Right. But it got me thinking, what about us?
Oh, interesting.
What about the parents?
Yeah.
Don't we need resilience too? That's so true. It's like they say on airplanes, put your own oxygen mask on first.
Yes.
You can't help anyone else if you're not okay yourself.
Right. Exactly. So as you're on this journey with your kids, don't forget about yourself.
Yeah, good reminder.
You've got this.
Yeah.
Every little step, every conversation, it all makes a difference.
Love that. So there you have it. Building emotional resilience is a journey, not a sprint,
Right.
and it's for all of us, not just the little ones.
It takes practice.
This guide is a great place to start, and we're here to support you along the way. Until next time, keep diving deep.